All right. Well, good evening, my fellow crimies, and welcome to another episode of True Crime with the Bad Girl and the Playa. I am Benny Scala, aka the Playa, and with me, as always, is my partner in True Crime, the Siren of Scituate, the Boston Bad Girl, the always effervescent Brittany Brown. Brittany, how are you today?
I am doing great. I can leave the heat, though. They say take it or leave it. I will leave it.
Yeah, well,
I don't know about you guys.
Talking to somebody who lives in Satan's microwave there. So now, one of the great things about podcasting, besides the lucrative salary and the scantily clad females that throw themselves at me in my dreams anyway, are the friendships I've made along the way. And this man is a perfect example of that. He is the one and only president of Thursday Night, Mr. Phil DeCesare. Phil, what's shaking?
Thanks, Benny. I just got back. I just got off the road from.
You were there, right? You were there.
I was in Dedham this afternoon for 2 hours. Yeah, roughly from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So I was in the thick of it. And what was surprising is that, first of all, there's several hundred people there, okay, lining the streets on both sides around the courthouse and that, the whole neighborhood or several blocks. But everybody was well behaved. And you know what? For the most part, everybody was pretty normal, okay? This is not a collection of wackadoos out there. These are good, concerned people who, have an interest in this case, as not only does one person's freedom hang in the balance, but really, I mean, it's a real deep look into what's going on in our public service sector. So it's got big implications.
Absolutely. Well, and then last but certainly not least, we're also joined by the independent Boston wrestler and a huge follower of the trial that we're going to discuss tonight, and that is the one and only Dangerous Dave Starr. Dave, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be here, and all I got to say is thank God for honest plow drivers.
You got that right. So, folks, we were here actually several weeks ago discussing and it is red hot murder trial of Karen Reed. Reed is a college professor, accused of running over her boyfriend, Boston cop John O'Keefe, on the night of January 28th, 2022. Now, Reed's defense, led by rising superstar attorney Alan Jackson, in my opinion, has seemingly neutralized every effort made by the prosecution. And after 31 days, the case was handed to the jury Tuesday afternoon. And as of us going on the air, we just talked about it, the verdict has not been reached. They've deliberated, I believe, for about 14 or 15 hours over the course of the last 3 days. So I think that's a good place for us to start. So let's go around the horn. We're going to start with Brittany and with Dave. I want your take on the statement I just made as far as the job Alan Jackson has been doing. And also your original. So when they got the case on Tuesday, my prediction was that there'd be a jersey by a verdict rather by lunch on Wednesday. So I'd like to get your take on what was your prediction? When did you think that they were going to come back with a verdict? So Brittany, start with you.
I thought within an hour.
Okay.
To me, this is a slam dunk and a complete waste of the Massachusetts taxpayers' money. This is the biggest cover-up I've ever seen. The biggest frame job, 1 hour.
What do you think of Alan Jackson? I mean, the guy was, to me, he was incredible.
Incredible. Absolute. I never heard of him before until this trial.
But he was a country singer, right?
Well, I heard of that one, but
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad he changed fields, because he's doing a bang up job. So he's quite a talented guy in every field.
It reminded me of a fight, and like when the prosecution would punch, this guy counterpunched 1,000 times better than the prosecutor punched. That was that's how I took it anyway.
Right, absolutely unbelievable. And I love the fact that he stood his ground with that judge. No matter what.
We're going to get to her in a second. Oh. So, Phil, what's your take?
Oh, he, hands down, I think the best I've ever seen. I mean, shades of Perry Mason and Matlock, albeit in a far younger form. I mean, almost looks like, the boyish looks of Alan Jackson certainly don't diminish the maturity and just the gravitas of him. I mean, he's talking about leaving no stone unturned. He is just so thorough. And again, when it comes to recruiting experts in the field. The experts who testified in the last few were just impeccable, beyond reproach. I mean, just credentials. I mean, you could roll, a wad of toilet paper and have all the credentials. It was just unbelievable. Yeah, these guys are just, and gals were just unbelievable. And his co-counsel, I have to say, though, Mr. David Yannetti, is quite good too. They work great as a team, and he has a future too. In fact, many T-shirts were circulating today that said Jackson Yannetti 24. In terms of quite the ticket to beat, and they certainly are. Yeah, so he doesn't cease to amaze me. He stands up to the judge in a polite but very firm and assertive way. In fact, I think she might even have a little bit of awe for him too, and kind of test him from time to time.
Yeah, no, I agree. So 2 questions, Phil. Number 1, what was your prediction on how fast a verdict would be returned? And 2, if you were there and you said like the large crowd, what percentage was in favor of Karen Read?
I would say they would have to be all supporters of her. Very, very confident, cautiously optimistic, but they not for one moment saw her as culpable in any way. So it is entirely 100% pro Karen Read crowd. Okay. And as far as the verdict, I'm with you guys. I thought it would be like a lunchtime verdict because we've watched this closely, and we can't always we can't forget the fact that they, despite being there, despite taking notes, and everything that goes with it, we've had the opportunity to go back time after time and review things, whereas this has really been their first chance to really, review with a high frequency, all the stuff that they saw, that they heard. So I think it bodes well for her, even though they're still deliberating. I think they want to be as thorough as possible. And I know we're going to get to Judge Cannon in a minute, but the verdict slip, as you guys know, left a lot to be desired. The actual paperwork that was given to the jurors. And that was, of course, a point of conflict and contention. And again, as we mentioned, how Alan Jackson requested some changes and ultimately did get them. The judge was rather snippy with him when he made the request. She said that she would have considered it, but didn't actually go through with it. But then the next time they reconvened, she made the changes, which would allow for the jurors to have the option to check a box that says not guilty, rather than having them assume that is the default point if they don't check guilty. So it was an important step, and again, a testament to his assertion.
Yeah, handled it very well.
Yeah.
How about you, Dave?
Well, I thought, my honest opinion, noontime today they would be done. But when a juror came in, I believe it was yesterday, and asked the judge for some more information, they were asking for a piece of paper. They were asking for some more information, and I was stunned when the judge told the foreman, that him or her, that no, I'm not going to give it to you what you're requesting. You've got enough evidence to work with. I was stunned because I always thought that was the judge. Whatever that jury requests, the judge is to give it to him. And Dave, she refused.
Yes, she did. I'll qualify that even a step further. The fact that she refused is because, again, in this very botched investigation that lacked documentation, this document didn't really exist to begin with. Okay. Oh. So I've read, so I've heard that this document didn't even exist. So, and I guess she wasn't able to say that, but as we've recounted, this wonderful investigation that used these solo cups to collect blood. I never knew what a solo cup was until I've used them. I didn't know they were called solo cups, but the investigators used solo cups, red party cups, to collect the blood at the scene. Unbelievable.
Hey, thank God. Just thank God for the very last person to see the crime scene before the cops got there and the ambulance and everyone. The very last person, God bless him, was the plow driver. He was the very last.
We're definitely going to talk about him some more, too. So, Dave, I wanted to ask you, one of what I thought might be compelling evidence for the prosecution, I think kind of backfired, and that's those voicemails that Karen Read left on O'Keefe's phone the night of the murder. And the state brought him up as evidence, and it was very late in the prosecution. So when you listen to him, she was certainly upset at O'Keefe, called him a cheater, a pervert. I'm sure there's a lot of other choice names that we can't repeat here, but but my opinion, that I thought that was better evidence for the defense, because you initially have a very angry Karen Reed, but the anger, as the messages go on, seemed to turn into anxiety. I think, the last message, she's almost begging him to come home. I mean, that would have to be a hell of an acting job on her part.
Yeah, I don't look into that too much because, hey, in my younger days when I had my long black hair and I was a stud, I used to have girls stand in front of me and tell me they hated me and scream and yell at me. And so I didn't really, I think it was better for the defense, but I don't really put too much into that other than, okay, we knew they were fighting because she didn't want to go there to the party. He wanted to go. That's what the fight was all about. And she dropped him off. But I think I don't read too much into that, to be honest with you. I've had girls say that to me. It's in the heat of the moment. It's over the phone. I don't read too much into that as I do much of, as I do the plow driver. I know I keep going back to that, but that guy put his reputation on the line in Canton, where he lives, where he works, and where he knows everybody and his family's from, and he has to get up and go every day. Thank God for that honest plow driver.
Yeah.
Dave, I really feel your pain, because women do that to me still to this day, all the time. But when they get excited, I tell them, got to hold on to your walker there. Don't lose your grip there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought of when I heard the voice. When I heard the voicemails, like, wow, that brings back memories. But they were standing in front of me when they told me.
Yeah, before you get too excited, let me check the levels in your oxygen tank. So, but now, Phil, I wanted to ask you about Judge Beverly Cannoni, and I think of the OJ trial and Lance Ito, and then the Casey Anthony trial and Judge Belvin Perry, two judges whose legacy, I believe, is pretty much entirely tied to those trials. And I don't really think in the best way either. Do you think Judge Cannoni is traveling down the same road? And to use a wrestling term, is Cannoni a jabroni?
She's been thrust into the main event, whether by merit or and again, she wasn't just thrust into the main event; she wanted the main event. Okay,
Yep.
This is a judge who was slated to go to civilian court. Okay, but actually proactively sought out to be included in this case, refused any requests by the defense to recuse herself, was adamant to be a part of this show. And I think since then, her the ratio of sustaining the objections of the prosecution versus sustaining the objections of the defense are just skewed, 90-10 towards the prosecution. We see her visibly almost acting bored at times with some of the defense's presentation, and in fact has actually admonished them a few times to kind of step it up or continue on, or that's it with this particular aspect of your presentation. Whereas on the prosecution side, the assistant district attorney, Lally, is a man who would make Ben Stein sound like a Shakespearean actor. I mean, it's just
right.
Yeah, I mean, just as a motive as a mosquito, and it's the ultimate sedative, I guess. And again, he has a thankless job, so I don't want to belabor his his approach, because it really is a thankless job from my view. How can he possibly prosecute this? But Judge Cannoni really seemed to be, I would say, swayed a little bit, perhaps a little biased, perhaps. Yeah. So jabroni, maybe a bit of maybe a slight heel, maybe yeah.
Ham and egger.
Yeah.
Maybe a ham and egger.
Yeah. Not quite a mid-carder, right?
There you
what
go.
do you think, Brittany, you agree?
Oh gosh, I mean, I don't see how, and I've said this to Dave in private, I don't see how she was allowed to be the judge on this case. I don't see it. Doesn't she have like relationships with some of the parties involved in this?
Well, yes.
Go ahead, Phil.
I'm just typing back to Maria and those in the text here. Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's my understanding that her brother is a lawyer who some 30 years ago, and I might have mentioned this on I don't know, on our first broadcast on this, defended the brother, Chris Albert, the one who's referred to as Chicken Parm Charlie by some of the local media here. He owns a pizza shop now, but he killed someone in a drunk driving accident 30 years ago, ended up going to jail for 1 month, and it was Judge Cannoni's brother who represented him. So, so there's a tie into the Albert family there, obviously, too. And yes, and we've heard whisperings of other, types of connections and so forth. But, to me, that's a pretty big point of connection, I would say.
I might be wrong. Oops. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brittany.
Sorry, I just said I don't see how it's allowed.
Yeah.
I thought I heard also that the judge owned a summer home that she has rented out to some of the Alberts or the McCabe's in the past also. I thought that's one of the reasons that was brought up. They didn't want her on this case.
Maybe. She has a summer home in Centerville on the Cape, so that is true. Yeah, that part is true. She has and I don't know. That's quite possible, quite possible.
See, that just seems all of those things separately, each of those things should be enough for her to not have this case. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question I have for you guys, and again, my perception, but to me, like none of the prosecution's witnesses were really effective, and I think the least effective was Trooper Proctor. And I guess my question to you guys is, Lowley, I mean, when they present him, number one, that, I mean, there was a very intricate relationship between him, the McCabe's, and the Alberts. That's going to be exploited, number one. Yeah. And number two, like the text that he made, the names that he called Karen Reed.
Yeah.
How did he not know? I mean, that those were not going to be brought up. I mean, what does that do to the guy's integrity and credibility?
They don't care. Yeah. That's the thing. Like Dave Sign just said, they're corrupt. They're all corrupt. They don't care. They think they're above the law.
And aren't they though? Aren't they above the law? Because look at all the corruption between the overtime corruption, the registry of motor vehicle, Mass State Police taking gifts to give out CDLs.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, it isn't, and then nothing happens to them. They go to court. You slap on the wrist to keep their pensions. They go into retirement and have a great life. So hey, why not? Nothing happens. No, there's no backlash to them. So hey, monkey see, monkey do. And
well, and this isn't really anything new, because I do believe a couple of months ago that we did. Dave, you weren't here, but Phil and Brittany and I did a show about Whitey Bulger, and with police corrupt, and that's at least 40 years ago.
And don't we have to hold the governor, Healy and ones before her, also as part of the problem, because they just keep hiring people from within to be the top guy in the Mass State Police, and nothing ever changes. They're corrupt. Michael Morrissey's corrupt. They're all corrupt. And not all cops, because there are a lot of good ones that take
enough to make a difference. I think, to me, it was a tie of who was the worst prosecution witness. It was a toss-up between Proctor and McCabe, Jennifer.
Oh, she was terrible.
And you know what? This is such a simple case they could have solved right from the start. If the cops that put their hands up and took the oath at the State House to do their jobs with honesty had just got a search warrant and went in that house with a forensic team, because a body on the front lawn and a party in that house the night before is enough probable cause to go in that house to get a warrant from a judge, and just went in there and seen if there was any blood, any fingerprints of John O'Keefe. And if there wasn't, then you know what happened. It happened outside. If there was blood in there, then you know what happened inside. It was such a simple case from the start, but because of police corruption.
That's the point that is not brought up enough, is that, there's a dead body on somebody's front lawn, yet, nobody knocks on their door. Hey, did you hear anything? Like, how does that happen?
I know.
Just like Michael Proctor said. When his buddy asked him, "Is there anything going to happen to the homeowner?" He said, "No, he's a Boston police officer. Nope, nothing's going to happen to him." And that's when this case right then there became, excuse my language, a clusterfuck. That's when
it really annoyed me when Jackson was cross-examining Proctor, and I mean he was tearing him apart, but it was, I mean, Lally kept objecting, and Cannoni, the jabroni, kept sustaining the objections. It's like, this guy's getting to the truth here. I mean, why don't you let the guy talk?
One good thing that came out of that, Benny, was that Trooper Proctor wanted to spell out some of the terms that he used to describe Karen Reed, but in a rare display of fair and balanced, the judge said, "No, I want you to say it and speak up." And rather sheepishly and ashamedly, Trooper Proctor did say what he had texted, and definitely, I think a turning point for many. For those who weren't following the case, very much a turning point. But those of us, for those of us like we've been doing, we've seen it all along. We knew this is just part and parcel of the behavior, of the culture, of those involved in this case.
So let me turn the tables. Let me turn the tables here for a second. Let me ask you three something. Do you think there's a chance that she hit him and ran him over and left him there? Is there a chance she did that?
I say no.
No. The Apple Watch data that's been released, John O'Keefe's Apple Watch data, which has been confirmed by these experts that have been brought in, showed that he climbed three flights of stairs after he was dropped off. Now, Karen Reed's SUV does not have 3 flights of stairs going up and down, okay?
Yeah.
And it perfectly coincides with him going in the front door, down the cellar stairs, and potentially being chased, up as well. So the steps are there, and again, the other markers, like we say, the physical markers, when you're, if you're in a fight, your heart rate, your respirations, and everything are going to increase dramatically, the fact that it was head wounds, the fact that, all the wounds were in the head. And one of the turning points for me, when I ceased being kind of an objective observer and to just being someone who really horrified, is when they showed his forearm, when they showed those marks that could not be done by a plastic reflector or a drink that was shattered as he was run over. Let's not forget, he had layers of shirts on. These were obviously bite marks and scratch marks, okay? Yeah. As testified by this renowned expert, they came from an animal, a large dog, most likely. So when I saw those pictures, they were very graphic and you just felt for the guy. And, I really hope that he was really inebriated, because, that was not a good way to go. It really wasn't.
And a big piece of evidence, too, is when the state forensic person was on the stand, and she testified that, she took swabs of that car on the outside, on the undercarriage, and on the tailpipe, and she didn't find one piece of DNA or any splattered blood on that vehicle. So what's that tell you? If she ran him over and he lost that blood, there'd be some type of even a little smidgen of blood somewhere on that car, under the undercarriage, the tailpipe, anywhere, but there was none.
Yeah, and Trooper Paul, one of the not so shiny moments or witnesses for the prosecution, he almost had a magic bullet theory, like Arlen Specter offered in the JFK assassination. The idea that this bullet would enter and jump around and zigzag and go in and out. He thought that Officer O'Keefe was struck, basically did a pirouette in the air, and somehow banged his head on the curb, and then landed, several feet away. It was just a crazy, crazy theory that was immediately disproven. So
I don't believe any of the coneheads that testified
had an associate's degree.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the guy I was trying to.
Yes.
I couldn't remember his name, but yeah.
Not a master of the of the King's English either, but
right.
You don't have to be, I guess.
That was kind of amusing, actually, to listen to his explanation of what
wasn't it?
Yeah.
And all these state police got the same look. There were a bunch of coneheads, like one after another. after another get on the stand, and they're all, I don't believe in hair, I guess. They all look like a bunch of coneheads from Saturday Night Live, you know.
Remember what they used to say? We are from France.
Exactly.
Wasn't that
Brittany, let me ask you a question. I mean, for me, like, there was never like one. It's like Andre the Giant against Frankie Williams. You know, there was never like when Andre wrestled Frankie Williams, there was never like 1 millisecond where I thought Frankie had a chance. And to me, this trial was very similar to that. Like, there was never a moment one moment when I thought, you know what, man, I think that prosecution, they have a very strong case. Ooh. I mean, from the get-go, it's like, man, these guys suck.
Yeah, so that leads me to ask you, Dave, why you thought, and this is just out of sheer curiosity of mine, is why you thought it would take till today at lunchtime to get a verdict, whereas all the rest of us thought it would be so quick.
Well, because, you know, you want to get it right. You got 9 weeks of testimony, 74 people are on the stand, and you can't do that you can't do it in 8 hours or 5 hours. You just can't, you know, and you want to get it right. You know what I mean? And to me, if I was a juror, it wouldn't have taken me that long, but you still want to get it right. And I think they're going to come up. I think tomorrow there'll be a verdict. I think late tomorrow afternoon, I think there'll be a verdict. I don't think that jury's going home for the weekend without a verdict.
I think they reached a verdict in 5 minutes, and they're just kind of sitting on it to make it look like they actually deliberated. Because
you think so, really?
What intelligent person could say that there is, you know, not reasonable doubt?
I know.
That's all there is.
Here's the theory. Here's the theory.
I feel bad for John O'Keefe, because in the end, is he ever going? Are they ever going to find out what happened to him? Is anybody ever going to stand jail time for what happened to him?
No. But I think
and that's a great question. What happens if she's found not guilty? Where do they go with this? Where does the state go with this?
The FBI, I think, is going to step in. I don't think you're going to hear the last of it. These Alberts, from what I understand, and Ed Higgins, they were being watched by the FBI for something. I can't say what it is because I don't know, but they were being watched by the FBI for stuff that they were doing. And that's why when this happened and the Reed family got the FBI, they're the ones that got the FBI involved. They said, we're already watching these people, and now this happens on his front lawn. If you research Brian Albert, he's a bad guy. He's a thug. He's beat up his lieutenant and knocked his teeth out. He's been in a bar fight with a firefighter from Canton and took a beer bottle and beat him over the head with it and walked out of the bar. He is not a good person. He is not a good person if you research him and his family. I mean, his brother killed somebody on the highway and took off. He took off. He didn't stay there. They found him. But Brian Albert he's not a good person. And there was a big fight. Last night in Canton with Turtle Boy in the Alberts. I don't know if you know that, but
I do. I saw him today. I saw Turtle Boy today.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Did I send you a picture, Benny?
Yes, you did.
And I sent you a picture with the with the judge, the imitator. There was a character dressed up as Judge Beverly today. Yeah. He making the rounds. It was pretty cool. But yeah, Turtle Boy handled that. Yeah, he handled that very well. He really did. And he's largely responsible for this case being.
Everybody can see that.
I don't know. Let's see if you can see. Oh, back a little bit. There you go.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Out in the front, then the courthouse stairs, man. Pretty cool.
And they're staying right around the corner at the church, right? Karen Reed and her attorneys and all.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And they came by us at the end when they wher going back to basically to hear that the jury was going to be out for the day and no verdict. But yeah, they walked by. Her dad walked by. He was trailing behind them as well, and she was very happy that she had folks out there supporting. She seemed in good spirits and acknowledged us and was
I was at their house, just to throw that out. I was in Dayton a few weeks back, so I said, you know what? Why not? So I put their address in, and I went to their house in North Dayton, the Reed's police house just to get a feel of what happened that morning in the driveway and the police being there and beautiful.
I want to try the chicken parm sub at the Albert's place just to see if it is mediocre, if it's really good. I want to get an unbiased view here. Anything for a chicken parm.
Yeah, I love chicken parm. Beautiful.
Yeah.
You and me both. I did want to ask you guys about the defense witnesses. Not that they even needed any, but one guy I was really impressed with was David Wolf, the accident reconstruction guy.
Yeah.
He was, I mean, to me, he was beyond credible. I mean, very competent. I mean, he really, I listened to his testimony right before we went on the air tonight, and he really knocked it out of the park. And of course, Lucky Loughran was, to me, the rock star of this whole trial. And I know, Dave, you were talking about him earlier.
I mean, think about, and get your guys' opinions on it. I mean, he blew my mind away. Just think about this guy. He grew up in Canton, school at the Alberts in Canton. He lives in Canton. He's on the DPW in Canton. His whole life, he's a Cantonite. His whole life is Canton. And he could have simply said, I didn't see anything. I can't tell you nothing. I didn't see nothing. But he went the opposite direction, and he was honest. And he was the last person to see that crime scene before the police and everybody came. And he testified there was nobody, and I believe him, when he said, he got the lights. My son-in-law is a plow driver. And he told me another point is, when you're plowing, suppose on that street, the speed limit, just say is 30. Well, you're only going 15 because it's snowing and you're going slow to get the snow. So you're even going slower so you would witness something. And he put everything on his whole life on the line.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything up and down. Went back and saw a Ford.
Yes.
A Ford.
SUV, a mid-size. I forget what it was. The three of them, but the three Alberts, all three of them have the same kind of Ford.
On his last turn down there, that was there, and then he said he left. And when he came back the final time, he couldn't get down there because everybody was down there then. So,
and David, and he, what struck Lucky as odd is the fact that the Alberts never park in the street ever.
Yeah,
they parked this night. Okay, very odd. And then he was asked, well, why didn't you call it into the police? And he said, which is typically what he'll do if he's plowing and he finds a route obstructed. He said, I did it as a courtesy to the Alberts. So here he was being kind, in his own mind and, trying to offer them, a little favor, not doing that. And in turn, just the act that car was there helps really fit into the crafting of this idea that Officer O'Keefe was killed inside, brought out through the bulkhead in the back, brought around the side of the house where there's the high fence, leading to the yard, and then I guess maybe loaded in the car or maybe just, using the car as a shield or a cover to kind of set the stage. And and he testified he saw no body, at all. He had his big spotlights. He calls his truck Frankenstein because it's assembled with all these different parts, and he has this giant spotlight, so he could see everything. And again, like you say, David, his job is to see everything. So,
he's got everything to lose. He's got everything to lose. Being honest, that's his whole life. Is Canton? That's his whole life. Imagine getting up and having to go in Canton after telling the truth. As far as I'm saying, being harassed. This guy was honest and told the truth, and he put his whole reputation and his life on the line in that town.
And you know what? And Trooper Proctor also lied that he was plowing that night. That it was he. So he basically was basically trying to block the defense from knowing this. And actually, Proctor also, when it came to the folks inside the home the night of this, the guests, he purposely on his report misspelled a number of their names. So when it came time to do further research and stuff, the defense would be stymied. So purposely, misspelled, several surnames that he knew, which is mind-boggling.
never interviewed him for a year and a half. The plow driver, Michael Proctor, they never interviewed him. The only reason why they had to interview him and get him involved was because the FBI got involved. And if you listen to the testimony, the guy named Paul, which is the FBI, they can't say it. When they got involved and they went and interviewed him, now the state police got involved and had to go and interview him. But they brought him out of the equation. They didn't want him in there. And he wasn't in there until the FBI got involved. These guys should be fired. Proctor, Michael Morrissey, they all should be gone. And it just takes a governor with a pair of kahunas to get rid of all of them.
Morrissey's going to be a delegate at the DNC convention, interestingly.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah. That's a good place for him. That's exactly.
I could elaborate. Yes, I agree, man. Yeah.
Corrupt collaborators. That's exactly where he belongs.
I want to ask Brittany this or get her take on this, because one of the things that really endeared me to Loughran was when he was talking about, like, when he's plowing, that he looks out for things that he might hit. And his last thing he said, and God forbid, an animal. And just the fact that he said that, I mean, maybe it was small. And to me, that meant that, like, I mean, there's somebody who really, covets not only human life, but even, like, God forbid he hit a dog. It's not, I can only imagine how this guy would have felt. And that really, to me, said everything about what kind of guy he was.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, like Dave was saying, this guy has everything to lose. Everything. He has a government. He's getting paid from the same people that the police are getting paid from, basically. Right? So he's going to have some problems in Canton. He is.
Yeah.
He is going to have some problems, and he doesn't care, because this guy cares more about the truth, cares more about people, and like you said, even an animal. He's worried about hitting someone's dog or cat. That's how much he cares.
I particularly love it when Lally was cross-examining him. It reminded me of the movie My Cousin Vinny, when I can't think of his name, the guy that they try to fire My Cousin Vinny for, and he was cross-examining one of the guys, and the guy just, like, looking at him, nope, yep, and just, like, completely shot him down. So you are not wearing your necessary prescription eyeglasses, and then the guy says, they're just reading glasses. And it was just like, that's how he just held his ground, never got flustered, just answered the questions very directly, very succinctly, and I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Movie with Herman Munster in it.
Yes, the late great Fred Gwynn. Yes,
I love him.
Yeah, we talked about witnesses and effective and ineffective, and particularly the prosecution witnesses. You mentioned some good names, Benny. I totally agree with that analysis, that ranking, but Matt McCabe did not do any favors for the prosecution either. The way he was on the stand, squirming and laughing at inopportune times, and just, the body language experts must be having a field day with some of these witnesses. I mean, the gyrations, the unintended smiles, and they looked at Brian Albert during the final day when he was seated behind Officer O'Keefe's brother, and he was in there with his nephew, Colin, and with Jen McCabe, but someone kind of focused on his reactions, and I think there's a body language expert looking at it and just conveying each time he, like, curled his lips or showed his teeth or, any of these movements, which to the one doing the analysis screamed culpability, amazing.
So, you guys mentioned that report, and with Proctor leaving, misspelling names.
Yeah.
Didn't he omit and leave off Colin Albert's name?
He did.
Yes, I think on the first. Yeah. Go right ahead, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He never even interviewed him. Never even put him in the report. Everything changed once the FBI got involved. A lot of stuff changed. A lot of people that weren't interviewed, and a lot of people that weren't on the report. A lot of things changed once the FBI got in, because and then, like I said, the plow driver, once the FBI got involved, now Proctor actually had to go and interview these people. He's such a piece of crap. I don't know how this guy, how does he still have a paycheck coming in? I don't get it. He is such and to stand there and look at me and tell me as he's talking to the jurors that he can swear, he can call this girl names, filthy names, looking for new pictures, and to stare at me in the TV and tell me, but I can make a biased BS. Total BS. You know, and that's Michael Morrissey's boy. He should be gone too. Michael Morrissey. He's a disgrace for a DA. He should be gone too.
Yeah.
It's like I do a lot of home shows, and people do drawings, and step right up and when they say at the end, it's legitimate. The first thing in my mind is no, it's not. It's the fact that you said that. If you had to say that, it's not legitimate. It's the same thing with Proctor. But I was still unbiased. No, you weren't.
Yeah.
But I want to say this though: there are a lot of good cops that put on that say goodbye to their wives and their families every day and put the gun in their holsters and go out.
Absolutely. The problem is none of them were there at 34 Fairview Road.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And some of them, when they put their hands up and take the oath, it actually means something to them.
Yep.
Sadly, it's not a big percentage like it used to be back in the day.
Yeah.
That we may all remember.
I remember it. I remember very well. I grew up in a police household, so all around. So it was a different time in many, many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another one that sticks out for me, three things that really stick out for me was that Barrows, too, the cop from Dayton.
Yeah.
Who had nothing to lose either, and he testified. That's why I went. He's one of the reasons why I went to that house in Dayton, Karen Reed's parents' house, and kind of looked over the scene, and because he said when he went in there, that taillight was intact except for a piece.
Slight little crack or whatever, yeah. And again, as I mentioned, and I remember the date last time, in October of 2023, Officer Barrows was involved, and Sergeant Barrows now was involved in a motor vehicle accident and nearly died again, after, of course, making the witness list and giving his initial, testimony and that sort of thing. I'm not saying there's any kind of I just thought, by the grace of God, he survived this. But secondly, kind of a strange thing to happen,
Right. Wow, I didn't know that. A good piece of it.
I
thought these things happened only in Arkansas, and no.
And I want to say one other thing that's to me is very important, and which you'll see tonight in that presidential debate. I thought that rally was kind of low key, not much energy, especially in his closing statements compared to Alan Jackson. Alan Jackson was full of energy, full of just excitement. He captured your attention.
Yeah.
Alan Jackson, he kept your attention. He kept you focused. When he got up there, I kind of lost. Well, he got into it because he's low key, unmotivated. To me, he's unmotivated the way he talks. He kind of. Yeah, I kind of woke myself up there. I thought I was napping.
I don't think he prepared to the same level that Jackson did, and I don't think he really presented. I mean, it would be very hard for anybody to present a compelling case for the state because it really didn't exist. But I even think the order of the witnesses, and I think there were way too many of them. Number one, I don't think you need. How many do they have? Like
160 something, I think, maybe. Wow. Did I read? Yeah,
that's crazy.
I think that's what I read. Yeah,
that's nuts. But even the timing, bringing up those voicemails from Karen Reed at that was almost the 11th hour. Why did you wait so long? That might have been something you would have thrown out right at the beginning. It's
I would have.
Yeah, she really hated this guy.
Yeah. Well, they were looking for a surprise knockout punch or what have you. But, again, I don't think there's anything really that would have swayed me by listening to those at all. If anything, if she struck him and did all that or intentionally or otherwise, she would not be calling. And, you can fake emotion to some extent, maybe, but not to that extent, She was clearly out of her mind upset, So, yeah.
And I don't care about her phone calls. To be honest with you, it doesn't affect me. I care about DNA and.
Well, I mean, how many relationships have had like an exchange like that? 50%?
Oh,
Right?
95.
Tumultuous,
Yeah,
my middle name, or what?
I was trying to be nice, Brittany. Yeah, probably closer to 95, but they don't end up in murder. It does because you're upset at your lover doesn't mean you intend on killing him. That was, and like I said, I think it made more of a case for the defense.
Absolutely.
Hey, I had a girl tell me she hated me and threw. Oh well, and then the next day we were lovey-dovey.
Yeah. No, I just think that it was. I think that there's a lot of resentment. Like when I watch a lot of these shows all day, and I follow the live chat, and it seems like the overwhelming comment in the chat room is, "Why was this case even brought to trial?"
Yep.
I see that more than anything.
Yep. That is what I have felt word for word from day one. Why is this where it's at? Why?
And it was definitely overcharged, don't you think?
Yeah.
The alternative would have been to search for the real killers,
Exactly.
It's such an easy case. It's such an easy case if they got that the cops that took the oath just did their jobs. And I've talked to police officers because the first Canton cop that was on the stand said, when Alan Jackson asked him, he said, finding a body on the front lawn and a party in that house, that's not probable cause to get a search warrant. No judge would have gave me that. And I've got friends that are police officers who told me, Dave, absolutely, that is enough probable cause. A judge would have gave him, you would have put the yellow tape up and told the homeowner nobody in and nobody out. And he waited for the judge to bring down the couple hours, he said, to get the warrant, and then you go in the house. That's absolutely enough time to go in that house. Enough probable cause.
If I wanted to stay a judge, I would do that in a New York second. Because otherwise, like well, why didn't you grant that warrant? I mean, how do you even answer that? What basis would you have in not granting it?
Right.
And my question is, who interviews witnesses as a group collectively rather than individually? Okay.
Brian Albert left his house that morning.
Yeah.
Early that afternoon. And instead of having Alan Proctor come over and interview him in his house, what did he do? He went over to the McCabe's house to be interviewed. Like,
imagine that.
What's up with that?
Mm-hmm.
You don't stay at your house. You run over to your McCabe's house, and that's where they interviewed the McCabe's and him separately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was just mind-boggling, though, how everybody, all these people knew each other quite well. And there was, I can't remember who it was. I think it was McCabe's daughter, or no, was it Proctor's? No, it was Proctor left his children with
very young.
Yeah.
Who was it with? With McCabe's daughter, I think.
I believe so. Yes, and there's some texts alluding to the fact
that was after saying he did not have a close relationship with her.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know him well enough to leave your child there.
Yeah.
And not to mention going drinking. Going drinking in a state police car. Going on assignment, and then having the trooper leave his badge and his gun drunkenly in the cruiser and being unable to find it the next day. I think that was Brian Albert, with whom Proctor had.
It was his brother. His brother, Kevin Albert from the Canton Police.
It was Kevin. Okay.
They were working on a cold case, I believe.
Yes.
And they went out.
Budweiser's, perhaps.
Yeah, and they went out and got shit-faced. And Kevin Albert left his, although they're not friends, not close. That's what he said.
Really, I know it was one of the Albert. Yeah.
But he left his gun. He couldn't find, when he got up the next day, Albert, he couldn't find his gun or his badge. He called Michael Proctor and said, I think I left it in your cruiser, but they're not close.
No,
they're
not at all.
Acquaintances,
Yeah. Just drinking buddies, just heavy drinking buddies. That's all.
And
they might go to the gym once in a while too, from what I understand. Believe it or not,
yes.
gym buddies too.
Brittany,
but they don't know.
Ask her a question.
Oh,
You there,
come
Brittany?
back.
Come back, Brittany. No, what I was going to ask Brittany, and you guys can comment on it. Like
David.
I've watched a lot of true crime shows besides this one,
Yeah.
and it always seemed like, my feeling was, many times the defendant did not take the stand, and I thought, well, why, if you have nothing to hide, why wouldn't you take the stand? And but after watching this case, Brittany.
There she is.
Did you hear me, Brittany? I don't know if were you able to hear us?
Yes, I could hear you.
Yeah, I guess my question is or not question, but my statement is, after watching this case, I know now why sometimes the defendant doesn't take the stand.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
1,000%.
Why would Karen Reed? She has zero reason to take the stand.
Absolutely. I would have been shocked if she ever did that.
Yeah. I mean, the jury could maybe hate the tone of her voice or her accent or anything,
I think, if anything, she could cause, just by that, she could cause damage, not by even any of the facts, just by maybe, because she does come across as being very, I don't know, cocky, maybe confident, arrogant, maybe a little bit.
A little bit. Yep.
Well, that's why the judge asked her, what are you laughing at, Miss Reed? If you in court, I think it was yesterday when Alan Jackson was questioning the ballots there.
Yeah.
And you couldn't see her because he was standing up in front of her. But she was smirking and laughing at the judge because she said something to her. What are you laughing or smirking at, Miss Reed? You find something funny? And then that's when she said, "We're all done here."
Yeah, we're
done here. Yep. Imagine that, huh?
I think there'll be.
I give her a lot of credit because, if I were in her shoes, even knowing that I didn't do it, you got to be scared shitless that the jury's going to get the case wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't know which way a jury's going to go. Tonight could be her last night of freedom. You don't know. You just don't know which way they're going to go. And tonight, you're sitting there thinking, well, this could be my last night of freedom tonight. And you never know.
Look at the people that have done 20, 30, 40 years in prison and have now, because of DNA that didn't exist then, are now being let out. Look how many things people have gotten wrong.
Yeah. We had a case at the Framingham Crime Lab a few years ago. I don't know if I mentioned it here, but few people were arrested who worked there. Okay. What they were doing was fudging these drug tests in an effort to process them quicker. Because like every other situation in government and wherever else, the workload just got to be too much for them. So they started to just process these things and arbitrarily assign them positive and negative and that sort of thing.
My God, that's
one woman who went away too, her name was Annie Ducan. She was at the lab. She worked there processing, and now she was found guilty and is serving time. I don't know if she's out, but this affected the lives of people who otherwise might have been innocent and ultimately went to jail. I was talking to a few people today outside of the courthouse. We were talking about the Annie Ducan and the crime lab situation. And one person had a friend who went to jail for drugs for which she was guilty, actually, using them or what have you, but was actually released because eventually they found that all that evidence was tainted, no pun intended, and they released these people. But still, time served for innocent people, man. Where do you go to get your reputation back is the old question. Where do you go?
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll get money, but how could money compensate for 10 or 15 years of your life? No amount of money can compensate for that.
Right.
None.
No. If I had a few of your shirts, I'd be happier, though, Benny. I love that shirt.
I like that.
That is awesome.
Playmate picks out all my wardrobe. So.
Oh, man. I'm loving it.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only way they could make that right with me, as far as if I was found guilty of something I wasn't found guilty of, besides money, if somehow they put me in a female prison for the time I was in.
I think I'd be okay with that.
You can give me some money when I get out. That'd be okay.
Right. Yeah. Sure. But now, do you guys think that I have to believe that by 11 o'clock tomorrow before lunch, they're coming back with a verdict? And if they don't, I think if they don't come back, if they don't resolve it by the end of the day? I mean, do you think there's a possibility it might be a hung jury?
I do.
Here's the question. Here's a thought. Here's a rumor, a whispering I heard amongst the jurors is, and I guess it's an even split between male and female.
Yep.
But supposedly, and I don't know how this could be done because I never got on jury duty because my late father was a police officer. But the talk of the scuttlebutt is perhaps there's a police officer on the jury. And so maybe, I don't know, I'm just speculating, maybe it is he or she who might be holding things up. I don't know. Again, this is unsubstantiated, corroborated, I should say, kind of hearsay. So maybe, maybe it's a case like that. Maybe it's a case where all but one are in agreement, and eventually, I think there's a poll that 90% in the poll feel that she is not guilty. Yeah. Only 10% of those polled feel she's guilty. So if that translates to the jury numbers, then that's relatively just, that's likely one juror who might be thinking guilty, but, I'm sure they're working on that juror.
Right. But what about going back to Whitey Bulger's case? Didn't Whitey Bulger pay a juror off, and weren't they flirting back and forth?
Yeah. This woman was accused of being in love with Whitey, as a matter of fact. Yeah, that did happen indeed. And
quite a bit of money.
Yeah,
like Ted DiBiase said, the $1 million man. Everybody's got their price.
Right.
Everybody's got a price.
I think they'll be back. I don't think this jury wants to come back on Monday. I really don't. I think they'll come back. They start at 9 a.m. I think they'll be back with a verdict by noon. I think everybody will be in that courtroom by 1:30, and you're going to have the verdict. I don't think these people want to come back Monday.
4th of July next week.
There is a juror that was paid?
What's that, Brittany?
What if there was a juror that was paid?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, who knows?
Anything's just one.
Anything is possible. I just don't see how, these was it 11 of them, right? 11 jurors. There's
12.
There's 12. Okay.
12 angry men, or not so angry.
When they start deliberating, how, in this case though, what is there really to talk about? I mean,
nothing.
There was so much doubt, and there was so little proof, and what are you going to analyze? Because Alan Jackson, anything that they came up with, Alan Jackson dismantled every last piece of it.
100%.
Yep. And a lot was that video too in the bar where Higgins and Albert were going, wrestling, and they're all riled up and they're going back and forth in the bar. Imagine what they were when they were back home.
I guess Higgins was caught on tape giving him the middle finger too during the course of that, And again, it was a case of these flirtations, and as we might know, supposedly when they were away in Aruba, O'Keefe flirted with one of the Sullivan girls who later testified, and in turn, perhaps Karen was exchanging flirtatious texts and ultimately a little peck on the cheek to this ATF Brian Higgins character, and that tension could have very well boiled over too. But before that happened, people were saying they're at the bar, at the night, at the waterfall. They were very lovey-dovey. In fact, the recording, the video shows them, a lot of touchy-feely going on. And that was, 2 hours before. Yeah.
What happened in that, something must have happened on the ride. And the one thing, was it ever revealed, who she was accusing of cheating with, and is it possible that it's one of these, somebody in the family there?
That's what I was thinking.
Well, I used the term to describe things in that little microcosm of that community as what was the word I used? Dang it! Now it must have been really incestuous. That's what it is. But in that sense, there've always been rumors about these couples and their relationships, as it's you got to wonder sometimes how close some of these clans actually are, and I'm not saying that they are, but it does make you wonder a little bit, the extent,
when John O'Keefe walked in that house, he had to know what was going on between Karen Reed and Brian Higgins. He had to know. It was on his video camera, them kissing. when they were over his house for a Patriots game. So you drink a whiskey at night, you go in the house. One thing leads to another. Hey, why are you texting my girlfriend? Why are you kissing my girlfriend? And
was that an ongoing thing, or was that just a one-off that had happened?
One-off.
It was just a one-off. Yeah.
Okay. But still, it happened, though, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't forget stuff like that.
No, certainly not. Here's a quiz question. What is ATF agent Brian Higgins' favorite drink? Start the Jeopardy clock.
He doesn't like beer. He hates beer.
Correct. That's true. But we're looking for.
I think he likes the vodka, and I can't answer that. I know he hates beer, though. That I know he hates.
Let me do a bad imitation. What is it?
Sex on the Beach.
Good guess. No. He corrected one of the attorneys and said Jameson and Ginger.
Oh,
not Jameson and Ginger. Jameson and Ginger is how he said it.
Yep.
Ginger, like a true.
That's right. Because he said he hated beer. I don't drink beer. I hate beer. He said.
Mm-hmm.
True Bostonian.
Yep.
But as time's winding down here, the next big case coming up is Alec Baldwin on Court TV. That's going to be.
Is that the Rust shooting?
Yeah, that's going to be the next big.
We're going to have so much material, guys.
Oh, absolutely.
This case
really
aside,
one of the women that the YouTube shows that I followed, she actually made up a shirt of what's his name, Lally, saying, he had reached the what if any. He had said it 2,000 times. So he's like, that's the equivalent of Vince Russo's bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bro.
What if any?
What if any? Yeah. But
I got so sick of hearing that.
So the Playa thinks 11 a.m. I think they'll all be back by noontime tomorrow. What do you two think? What's your prediction?
Go ahead, Brittany.
I'm going to say 10.
10?
Well, I'm hoping it's somewhere in there because I get off the radio at 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, and I almost want to jet down there again. And I'll tell you, it was really fun being down there for 2 hours. I wasn't supposed to be down there today. I wanted to, but the air conditioning in our studio broke down today.
Oh, no.
And we're 25 minutes as the crow flies, all back roads to this place. So I said, I couldn't get a more open invitation than that. So I jumped on it. But tomorrow, and hopefully if the weather's good, if I can get out reasonably early enough tomorrow, I might go down and poke around again,
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that fun though? Isn't that like when I went to the crime scene, and it's fun too, because it's so close to home, it's
I love work 25 minutes, David. Again, back roads, no highways, no Mass Pike, no 90, none of that, no 128. Boom, it was so sweet and nice going through Wellesley and all those.
Just take everything in and take it all in. The people.
Cruising down the road, baby. Taking my time.
Take it up.
Does anybody think it's going to be guilty?
No.
I shudder to think that, and I shudder to think of being down there amongst those people. Again, there won't be any riot or any violence, but I know there would be incredible collective disappointment, sadness, shock, and all of that. So I'd hate to be a part of that, but I'd love to be a part of the energy. If a not guilty verdict comes through sometime tomorrow, and I'm optimistic like you guys. I'm going to say noon. All right, I'm going to say noon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good point. And you know what? Once this is said and done, the FBI should come in. All of them should be gone. Proctor, all the Mass State Police that were there, Michael Morrissey, all of them. They all.
You remember? Yeah. Do you remember the scene at Shawshank Redemption when the feds swooped in on the prison and started taking the guards, apprehending them, and then went up to get the warden? Such a powerful scene, man. And those are romantic thoughts in a way with respect to some of these players, but justice might be served sometime, but I don't know if it's going to be right away.
Yeah. Well, how do you not investigate these people when they've been they've been profiled at such a high level with the corruption? How do you not investigate them after this?
I know. And how do they keep their jobs? Like, like we were saying earlier, how are they getting a paycheck still?
Right.
Especially after this.
Maybe Karen Reed should do what Brooks did in the Shawshank Redemption before he hung himself. Karen Reed was here.
Yeah. That's one of the best movies, man,
Yeah.
ever.
Brooks was here.
This lady's, if she's not guilty, she's writing the book the minute the case is over, right?
You should.
Yeah. Maybe I'll go. Maybe I can go down to maybe I can look her up. Maybe, there's a future for us there. Who knows? She gets.
I can tell you, it's quite striking in real life, too. The TV does not do her justice.
Really?
I can tell you that. Yeah.
So did
Well, it was a nice sunny day. Good lighting,
Phil, where was she still employed as a professor? Before this all happened.
She was, I believe, still in that capacity, and she worked in a high level at Fidelity Investments for quite some time as well. Yeah. So, she's definitely a very, very intelligent woman. Absolutely. Yeah.
She can throw rocks at me and tell me she hates me as long as she's writing a book and the money's coming in. I don't care.
Can eat the proverbial cookies in bed. You don't worry about the crumbs, kind of deal. Yeah.
No, the money's coming in.
A great theme song for this whole thing would be by Elvis Costello. I don't know if you're familiar with him. But he has a song called "Watching the Detectives," and I think it would be very appropriate for this case.
Wouldn't it?
Watching the Detectives. Yeah.
Great song. Elvis Costello, Armin concert 2 years ago. Back when it was great.
Yes. Forever it will be, David. We call it Great Woods still,
Yep.
That's what it will be for me.
More. In Karen Reed's hometown of Mansfield, no less, too.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Great
All
Woods,
right,
man.
So final thoughts, starting with Brittany and ending with Dave. What do you think?
Final thoughts is I pray that justice is served. That's how I feel. I feel very strongly about it. I think the innocent should be proven innocent and let go. And I think the guilty should be proven guilty and pay for what they've done.
Amen.
I think I'm optimistic about justice being served, and in my viewpoint, after hearing this, the whole story is that the defendant is not guilty of the crime charged. And what's more, we mentioned about this case being such a great source for discussion. This case is going to spawn discussion of other cases too. Michael Proctor, the lead investigator, also investigated the Anna and Brian Walsh murder here, and where he killed his beautiful Russian-Ukrainian wife and dismembered her, and he was charged also with selling fake Andy Warhol prints and that sort of thing. But Proctor was, I think, the lead in that. And there's another case that ties in within the town of Canton of the death of a young woman. Not going to get into it now, but some of the same players might be involved, and they're starting to look at that case again. It's a fascinating case, and I'm sure we'll talk offline and perhaps even visit that one too, because there are some parallels and because it's very intriguing too. So more to come, man. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
I honestly pray for his parents. When you see his parents on there, his father doesn't look good. They're elderly. And I honestly pray for them and for the children that their parents died a month apart, that they get justice. And I pray it's not a hung jury, because if it's a hung jury, the state has a right to retry the case, and I'm just hoping it's back just not guilty.
Do they retry it though, Dave?
They can if they want.
But they likely won't. I don't know. David, you said praying for the father. He walked by. I have it on tape. You can't see it. I don't even know if you can hear it. Did you hear that?
Yep.
I yelled that to her dad.
That was you.
That was me.
Oh,
it's funny you say that, but as he walked by, I said that to her, but I said that especially to him as he was trailing right behind. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I feel bad when you see him in court. They're just so elderly, and the mother's always got her head down crying, and the father looks really spent because of what's going on.
Yeah. Well, guys,
so we should pray.
Thank you so much for giving me your time. This has been great. We could go on for hours, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for the outlet, Benny. I mean, I feel like a high pressure hose that's finally being, with all. I'm sure we all are. We're soaking it all in. It's like let's get some of this stuff out.
So
Yeah.
like you said, we got plenty more cases to plenty of material. We'll never run out. So that about wraps it up, folks. And if there's any crime or anyone you want to chat about, shoot me an email at truecrime24@yahoo.com, because we're talking true crime here. So if you're going to email someone, what better way than to shoot it, right? So again, many thanks to everyone in attendance in the chat room, as well as the millions
and millions
of true crime fans everywhere. So for the Boston Bad Girl, the President, and Dangerous Dave, this is the Playa telling everyone to stay safe and see you next crime. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night, America.